You're listening to the Cinemental Podcast.
Shall we begin?
Welcome back to the Cinemental Podcast, where we discuss mental health themes from cinema, television, and popular culture. I'm Jeffrey Jones, and I'm a filmmaker and professor, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother, Dr. Joshua Jones, who, as well as being a man who does a perfect Boston accent, is a general and forensic psychiatrist.
Don't park your car in Harvard Yard.
Oh, God. Even John Hamm was better than that. We want you to start your week off right with our podcast, so we drop a new episode every Monday morning at 9 a.m. and again on Thursday at 9 a.m. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, or you can watch our hottest and spiciest clips and now full episodes on YouTube. Josh, we're talking about Good Will Hunting today, and 51 episodes in, I'm surprised it took us this long to do the quintessential guy in therapy movie.
Quintessential for our era. I mean, we've had a lot of content to cover, Jeff. Yeah, we've had a lot of content to cover.
I think we're about to enter sort of a new generation. Do you think this movie will continue to be relevant, or is this something that's going to kind of go with Gen X and millennials?
I think it'll go away. I mean, look, it is a good movie, no doubt about it. And we watched it at a coming-of-age time where we were, pretty much the same age as the main characters. So as that fades, this movie will fade in relevance. Also, as the actors fade in relevance. So, when Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are past their prime, this movie won't be much. And unfortunately, kids who are my children's age, they don't know Robin Williams, which is really a shame because
that is a shame.
He's amazing. Now, I mean,
do you think there's a current, there's a new Robin Williams? Do you think any of the current comedian actors have sort of risen to Robin Williams levels?
No.
Or is there any similarity? I don't either.
No,
I don't know that there will.
I don't at all.
He was just so one of a kind. And we're going to talk about obviously Robin Williams a little bit later in the episode. Okay, today, Josh, we're talking about Good Will Hunting, which, if you haven't seen it, just as a recap, this is the 1997 Academy Award-winning prequel in the Jason Bourne franchise, where we learn Jason's real name, Will Hunting, and how he escaped the terrible influence of his poor and violent friends by hanging out with Robin Williams and finding out he's good at math. This movie launched Matt Damon's career and thus the coattails on which Ben Affleck has sailed for the past 20 years. Worst Batman ever.
Jeff, you write the absolute worst movie summaries.
What are you talking about?
That's just, I mean...
What are you talking about? Tell me one thing that was wrong in there.
But that's not the... I mean, it is the movie, but it's not the movie.
This was a Jason Bourne prequel. You cannot convince me otherwise. Jason Bourne was so smart. This guy was basically a superhero. There's no way that this wasn't the Jason Bourne prequel. That's the only part I could see you having an issue with.
Look, the point of the movie was it was a coming-of-age story about a super intellectual kid who also had severe emotional trauma and his relationship with his therapist.
Do you think anybody watching this doesn't know what Good Will Hunting was?
Yes, I do. I think a ton of people don't know what it was. Because Jeff, I know.
Well, I know one thing, Josh.
I know
you can definitely tell us the topics that we're going to cover today. So, Josh, what are the topics we're covering today?
So we are going to talk about Will Hunting and his difficulties with attachment and a disorder that he has around that called Reactive Attachment Disorder. We'll dive into what that means and what he shows that tells me that that's what he was dealing with. We'll talk about Will's hyperintelligence and how realistic that was. And then we're also going to talk about Robin Williams' character and the therapy that he provides to Will. Was it good therapy? Was it effective? How realistic was that portrayal?
Like we talked about, great movie. Josh is right. I did not do a great summary. I think you can kind of glean what the movie's about. Basically about a super smart kid falls into the wrong crowd, solves a math problem, gets taken in by a professor, and as part of his parole has to do therapy with Robin Williams. And Robin Williams helps him to deal with some of his anger issues and become a better man. So let's just dive right into to Will. Part of the charm of this movie, part of what I really resonated with, was the strength of his friendships. And friendships can be, one way or another, such an important part of your childhood and will really dictate who you are later in life. If you fall in with the right crowd, you're going to learn good habits. If you fall in with the wrong crowd, you're going to learn some bad habits. What were his friendships good for him or bad for him?
I think they were, on the whole, pretty good for him.
Yeah.
He had a supportive group of friends. I wouldn't say he necessarily fell into the wrong crowd. It was not an intellectual crowd. It was a, stereotypical working class Bostonian, towny crowd.
Right.
But these were also friends who really, really cared about him. They were doing the best they could with what they had. You had several poignant scenes where they kind of were like, I'm going to do my Boston accent here. Get the fuck out of here, Will. Yeah, go do this. Wow, that is just horrible. Especially the very poignant scene when Ben Affleck tells him, you got to get out of here. You got to go be you. I cannot wait until I wake up one morning and you're gone.
Right.
Not because he doesn't like him, but because he loves him.
Because he loves him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally agree. And I certainly had those friends in high school that would burn something down for me, that would help me bury a dead body. I think every guy has talked about if I had to bury a dead body, who would I call? And that's the ultimate level of friendship. And it's so funny because a lot of Ben Affleck and Matt Damon movies have that recurring theme, and I'm thinking about The Town, where Ben Affleck has the line, you got to come with me. We're going to hurt some people. You can never ask me about it, and we'll never talk about it again. And Jeremy Renner just responds, whose car are we taking? And it's just that level of whatever you need, whatever it is, I'm there. It's funny to me that these guys have these recurring themes in their movies. But again, really good writers write what they know. Correct me if I'm wrong on this and just dive into reactive attachment disorder. But that friendship is part of what leads to this disorder that we're going to talk about today, correct?
Well, the friendships that he had with his peers speak a little bit against having reactive attachment disorder, although, you can form friendships. So let's talk about reactive attachment disorder. Will Hunting's character was in and out of the foster care system. He didn't have stable attachments. And as we've talked about, attachments are really just a fancy way of saying bonding with your parents, bonding with others. So imagine a child who, due to severe neglect or trauma in their earliest years, struggles to form healthy emotional bonds.
Right.
That's the core of what we call reactive attachment disorder, or RAD. These children might be withdrawn and emotionally distant, or conversely, overly affectionate with strangers, but lack genuine connection.
Okay.
They often struggle with trust, emotional regulation, and may exhibit a pervasive sense of detachment from others and authority. All things that Will Hunting portrayed. It is a complex condition, but it's rooted in a failure to establish secure attachments during critical developmental periods, and it profoundly impacts kids and later adults' ability to relate to others throughout their life.
What happened in the movie that makes you think he had reactive attachment disorder? Were there specific things he did, or was it just sort of the facts of his life?
No, it was more than just the facts of his life. So they never explicitly stated it. So many of his behaviors strongly resonate with RAD. Consider his fierce independence, his refusal to let anyone truly get close. Even his friends. He kept that. They were close, but did they really get to know the emotionality of Will Hunting? They didn't really, right? He was still very, very fierce. And his tendency to push anyone away who tried to help him.
Yeah, who he truly was, he hid from them.
He did.
Unless he was dunking on people. He would bring it out if he needed to shut someone down like he does at the bar. But I don't think he was just constantly ripping those quotes out. He would just do it if it meant I'm going to smack this guy in the face. But otherwise, he took a job as a janitor.
Exactly.
Definitely hiding all of these things from his friends.
These are all points that speak right to this, Jeff.
Right.
So he lashes out. He sabotages opportunities. He exhibits a deep-seated distrust of authority and a deep-seated distrust of genuine affection. Right. Which plays into the dysfunctions that he has with Minnie Driver's character.
Yeah. It's a great love story, but he does keep her at bay.
Yeah, and he sabotages.
Like the lying about his brothers and the names of all of his brothers, and there's a bunch of different ways that he and there's the big blow up when he's like, "What do you want to hear? That I was an orphan? That they put cigarette butts out on me? What do you want to hear?" Nobody wants to know that. Nobody wants to know that, which is such a lie the character believes.
Right.
But it's no, people who really care about you do want to know those things.
Exactly. His brilliant intellect acts as a shield, protecting him from emotional vulnerability. And these aren't just signs of a rebellious genius. They echo the deep-seated attachment issues and emotional dysregulation that we see in individuals who experienced early neglect or trauma. Right. And they prevent them from forming secure, trusting relationships at many times throughout their life.
Tell me something fascinating about reactive attachment disorder.
Fascinating thing about reactive attachment disorder, that even with all these damages that happen to kids, it is treatable and it is manageable. You manage it through hard, consistent work. Having a therapist who walks alongside you, or a series of therapists who walk alongside you and identify and help you challenge the automatic thoughts that this attachment's going to fail.
Right.
This friendship's going to fail. They are going to betray me. It can be managed, but it takes constant effort.
God, can you manage this without therapy?
You probably can. You can probably learn your way out of it. I mean, Will was managing. Was he able to survive? But was he reaching anywhere near his potential? No.
That was sort of one of what I thought was the most interesting themes of the film, is like reaching your potential as a human versus reaching your potential as a worker. Robin Williams wanted him to reach his potential as a human, and Sarsgaard's character wanted him to reach he didn't really care about whether Will falls in love, didn't care about if he was a well-rounded man. He just wanted him to do the math. And I thought that was really interesting and really well done. In the end, Robin Williams kind of betrays Sarsgaard and doesn't have him do what Sarsgaard wanted him to do, which is what a good therapist and a good friend would do. Same thing with Ben Affleck. Wanted what was best for him and not what was best for Ben Affleck.
Yeah, well, Sarsgaard character, Dr. McGuire, had, so many narcissistic features. He was the best. But once he wasn't the best, once he found this prodigy, he reframed his narcissism around, I'm the one who found this prodigy. I'm the one who's lifting this gutter trash out of the streets.
Right.
Even his relationship with Robin Williams' character, which has some deep betrayals in it, was all about narcissism. So
I know that we're always we're always reaching for the most mentally healthy. I just don't know that it's realistic for people to constantly be in therapy. How much value do you put in people finding the yin to their yang? I don't think anybody should get into a relationship thinking, you know what, I'm going to help this person, I'm going to solve them. I do think that someone with reactive attachment disorder could find a really meaningful relationship with a certain type of person.
And they absolutely do. They do it all the time. Look, on this podcast, we talk about the disorders as they're happening and the most severe times when people are experiencing the symptoms of reactive attachment disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, even schizophrenia, all these types of things. Almost all of the conditions that we talk about are waxing and waning over the course of a person's life. Sometimes they're time limited, like if somebody has a single major depressive episode, it may last for a few months or a year. But most people who are dealing with the mental conditions that we talk about have them come and go in symptom intensity over the course of their lifespan. So I want to be very clear and get this out there. I don't think everybody should be in therapy, and I don't think everybody should be in therapy all the time. Absolutely not. Not only is that not feasible, it's also probably not scientifically supported. So we talk about episodes of care in the mental health world. So you're having some symptom flare-up. That's when you go and you re-engage with a therapist, or if you've been seeing a therapist for maintenance therapy, you may increase your frequency. That may be when you decide to try a medication, or if you've been on a medication longer term, you have an increase. So we talk about these episodes of care. It is also frequently encouraged that if you are in a pretty good place in your life and you've got a history of issues that may pop up, like trauma, maybe that's a good time to think about doing some trauma-focused work so that you can ward off, future eruptions of your symptoms. Not everybody should be in therapy. Most people shouldn't be in therapy, and not everybody should be in therapy all the time. Absolutely not.
Do you think everybody should be in therapy at some point in their lives?
I don't.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't. I think that you should seek out therapy if you have some conditions or some issues in your mental health that you want to work on. But I think that there are some people, fewer than we thought in the past, who are going to be okay, who have a combination of resiliency, genes, and quite honestly, luck, but they don't need it.
It's that thing, too, of but you could be more okay. That's not what okay means.
You can't be,
That's not what okay, perfect is not more okay. Perfect is perfect. Okay is okay. You're just okay. There's nothing wrong with being okay, and I think that's really interesting. And we're saying the same thing in that, where it's my response is they could be even more okay. That's not what okay is, Jeff. Like okay means you're okay. There's some faults. There's some good things.
Well, Jeff, I like how you said it because especially in our current environment around like the Maha movement, I think that there's some very important criticisms to be leveled at the wellness industry.
What's the Maha movement? Sorry.
Make America Healthy Again.
Oh, yeah, okay. I think doctors know what Maha is. I think if you ask regular people on the street, they don't know what that is.
You know what, Jeff? Let's take this to the streets, motherfucker. But anyways, there's some important criticisms to be leveled at the wellness industry around this concept.
Right.
Because I think this idea that wellness is there's always more wellness you can have. You can always have more wellness, can't you?
Right.
Is really a way to sell product and couched in that, oh, no, I'm not just trying to sell you a product. I'm trying to increase your wellness.
Right.
And I think that there's some real criticism that we could level in another episode at that industry.
If you're doing yoga, acupuncture, and massages on the reg, you are too okay. You've gone too far. You've reached too deep and you've fallen into the trap of monetizing wellness. I'm okay with maybe one of them every now and again, but that's too much. That's just too much. I also think we didn't say this, but there's a ranking for connections, right? There's a ranking system. The highest level of a bond is the James.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and then the lowest level is the junk.
There you go. All right, we should do a top five bonds.
Top five
All right.
types of
That
bonds.
was dumb. I apologize. Dumb joke of the day award goes to Jeff. All right, let's talk about his smarts. This was in a time before Marvel and DC really took off, and we understood what superheroes were. This guy's smarts were, to me, superhero level. Is that accurate, or do people like Will Hunting exist?
People with Will Hunting's level of intellect exist, for sure. Highly, highly uncommon. I mean, when we look at intelligence quotient, which is not, by the way, a particularly great way to measure intelligence, you basically look at how the average person does on a set of questions. And you say, okay, that's 100, that's the median. And then you basically have a bell-shaped curve on either side. And as you go further out into that bell-shaped curve, on either side, you get increasingly away from that median. That's where Will Hunting would ostensibly be, way out there where, 0.001% of the population are as smart as he is based on some intelligence test. But yeah, folks like that exist. And you find them a lot in high-level math, high-level physics, incredibly cerebral pursuits. Okay,
let me ask more specific though, because the Fields Medal is given out once every 5 years. There's someone that wins it. So every 5 years we learn who the smartest guy is when it comes to math. Will Hunting was far and above smarter than him. That can't happen more than once a generation. Yeah. Once in the last 300 years. Sure. Right? Like what is the percentage that a Will Hunting comes along?
1 in 8 billion. I mean, somebody out there in the world is the smartest person, right?
Well, I get that, but
that's what you're asking.
I guess more my question is do
you want me to say that Will Hunting's a superhero? Yes, Jeff.
No, I don't. I want you to say, in the history of humanity, where does Will Hunting fall? Is he in the top 5 humans of all time in terms of intelligence?
Number 14. There are people that are that groundbreaking and that smart. That was one particular area. So there's so many different parts of intelligence, and you can be emotionally intelligent, you can be mathematically intelligent, you can be linguistically intelligent. So there's a
So if you saw that movie today, you wouldn't think superhero?
No.
Okay, that's totally fair.
No,
totally
I look at Ben Affleck and think, is that Batman?
Oh, God, it is not. It is not. I'm so glad we've moved on to the, maybe we have, I don't know, we'll see what James Gunn does, but I'm so glad we've moved on to the Robert Pattinson Batman. I like Robert Pattinson so much more. I don't necessarily even like the Batman all that much more. I'm just not a Ben Affleck fan. Also, I'm going to do a supercut for this episode of how many times he fails in the Justice League and then comes back and is like, that's why I brought all you guys together. Look at me. Look at me. I'm the guy that brought everyone together. I had this great idea of bringing the mightiest warriors together. No one wanted to do it until all of a sudden you realized that but that was my idea. Guys, it was my idea. It's so pathetic. I did not like the Justice League. Yeah, I mean, the one thing DC has going for them is Batman, and they just mess it up.
You're doing an impression of the Pete Holmes Batman skit right there.
God, those are so good.
They're really
if you haven't
great.
seen any of those, just YouTube Pete Holmes Batman. It's so good.
Jeff, I know that I am going to get a lot of hate for this comment, a lot of hate from you, and then a lot of hate from our listeners and our viewers. I liked the Ben Affleck Batman better than the Dark Knight Batman.
Man, I don't even know if I can continue podcasting. Like, that might be a bridge too far.
I know.
You liked it better than the Christian Bale Batman?
Is Christian Bale a fabulous actor? Absolutely. Is he Batman? No.
What did you like about Ben Affleck's Batman?
I liked it better than Christian Bale's. I didn't love Ben Affleck as Batman, but he was better than Christian Bale, in my opinion.
Wow. Okay, I don't even know what to do with that. I'm going to have to process that at another time. We'll see if we come back for a 52nd or 53rd episode based on this revelation I've just had about my brother. Okay, last thing I want to talk about from a mental health standpoint, Josh, and I do think that this is kind of the big one. I know we went off about Rad. The therapy in Good Will Hunting was so good, and it was so well written in terms of it being entertaining and consumable. Was it well written from a mental health standpoint?
Yeah, it was. It was really good therapy.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was really good therapy. He was flexible. He was not doing cognitive behavioral therapy. He was doing more supportive, more what we call psychodynamic therapy, talking about what events happen in a person's life that might have led to them being who they are now, and trying to get him to bring some subconscious things into the conscious. It was well-written therapy. Could I see a course of therapy going just like that and being effective? I could.
Okay, so the first scene he has with him, they're, smelling each other's butts a little bit, and Matt Damon just takes him down.
I missed that part. Wow.
Metaphorically.
You got a different cut than I did.
Matt Damon just refuses to listen to him, refuses to connect, and just eviscerates him, finds his weak point, takes down the picture, I think that his wife had drawn or something along those lines. And Robin Williams chokes him and is like, I will kick your ass if you ever say anything again. And then wants to have at it. He's like, I want to go again. I'm not going to ask you to say that like violence is a good part of therapy.
No.
But was that scene believable?
He wouldn't put his hands on his patient. Absolutely not.
Yeah, and you don't even think that him in that particular part of his life or being attacked that way, he'd put his hands on him.
Well, I mean, if he did, he should be kicked out. So kicked out of the profession. So that's just not appropriate in any way, shape, or form. Look, 90s, different time. It wasn't appropriate then either. Other than that part, it was good therapy. So
Fair enough.
I will backtrack. I will backtrack on my earlier statement. That wasn't a good part of it.
But I think we all know that that's like good theater. That's a good movie
it was good theater. Look, this happens all the time. Patients, especially those that don't necessarily want to be in therapy, and they're often the most challenging patients. So you had Robin Williams' character have what we call dual agency, and this is sometimes very difficult to navigate in therapy, but it's not uncommon when you have both the responsibility to your patient or to your client,
and also to the court.
Somebody else. Yeah. So he's got a dual responsibility there. You will frequently have the client in that situation challenge the therapy and basically kind of be like, hey, can I get kicked out of this? Can I get out of this in some way? Because I'm not really invested in it.
Right.
Doing real honest to God therapy in those situations is very challenging.
Sure. Yeah. When someone's forced to do therapy, they're not invested in it the way that somebody's like, man, I'm at my wit's end.
Yeah. They're not invested in it, and it was only through a little bit of luck, a little bit of skill on the part of Robin Williams' therapist that he was able to make some kind of breakthroughs. I mean, he didn't cure him of reactive attachment disorder. He didn't cure him at all. In fact, in some ways, it was a partial success because he went in kind of left and went off to find his own way, also rupturing all the attachments he had in the Boston area. So it was I would say that's a mixed outcome.
Right, but he's going to need some more therapy. I don't think that anybody thought he was done. He was just done with the court order, essentially. Okay, so next scene that they have, Matt Damon comes back. Matt Damon's very surprised to see him. He's like, "Oh, you again?" And Robin Williams takes him out of the office and he takes him down to a park bench. Is that good therapy? Is that something that is done?
Yes, absolutely.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Go meet in a neutral space. You want to have an area, of course, where you're private. You're not going to be overheard and things like that. But getting out of the office, if that's not the right setting, there's lots of therapists who do that, and it's totally fine.
Yeah. Ends it with your move, Chief. You can engage in this or not. Goes back. They don't talk at all. Sarsgaard's like, you were there for an hour and didn't say a word. And Robin Williams says the first guy who talks basically loses. And they come back, and then Matt Damon tells a story about being on a plane. He tells a joke about being on a plane. Is that good therapy? Is like, I'm just going to sit here.
Absolutely. Frequently silence is incredibly therapeutic. This is why, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists do a lot of training and get a lot of supervision about this.
Yeah.
Because it feels like that wouldn't be a good use of time.
Right.
Oftentimes the silence is very important. A pregnant pause at the right time when your patient has just laid something heavy down on you, or when they've just come to a realization, is very therapeutic. Having a whole session where you don't speak at all because it's somewhat of a challenge in a therapeutic way.
Yeah.
I've been involved in those. It happens.
Yeah. I love it when basically Robin Williams is almost nodding off when Matt Damon starts to tell that joke because he's just tired. I thought that was a great little detail.
Think of it this way, Jeff, especially in somebody that we've just described as having reactive attachment disorder. The attachment gets disrupted. They can't trust. So if you sit with them all the way through what is clearly, and you both know it, a petulant tantrum of I'm just not going to talk to you. If you sit with them through that whole thing, you have just shown, I'm with you, Chief.
That's a great point. Oh, and it's funny. I'm seeing some of that with like my kid right now. Like my kid is just lashing out in ways, and it's like, and to me, it's obvious what's happening. She's just like trying to push away to see who stays. Mm-hmm. To see like, where are my rocks? It was like, I don't want anything to do with you. She will often yell at me like, I'm never talking to you again. And then my response is like, that's okay. I understand that. And when you're ready to talk to me, I'm here. And then she'll like run over and give me a hug. But it's like, yeah, you just can't take that. You can't take that personally at all because it's like that is a test. Okay, last bit of therapy.
I remember my one of my teenagers, who shall remain nameless, scream at me and my wife, "You're like Hitler and you run the concentration camp." And I just said to him or her, "And you'll always have a place here."
Oh, wait. Is it on all?
I know. But the point is that people testing boundaries will do anything they can to push you away and throw you away. And oftentimes, just persevering is the right thing to do.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great message. Last part of the therapy, Josh, that I want to bring up, and then we can move on. Because it's the part of the movie that makes me cry. It's the part that makes anybody who has a soul cry is, the last scene where he tells him it's not your fault. And he says it over and over again. And he finally like really breaks down that part of Matt Damon who like needs to hear it. It's not your fault. And he gives him a hug. I've never hugged any of my therapists. Is that good therapy?
It's a gray area. There's lots of, and appropriately so, there's lots of schools of thought around therapy that physical touch is not okay, that you should have this boundary, that there is, touch is very meaningful. You don't often always know what people perceive touch to be. It can often be exploitative, taken too far, et cetera, et cetera. That all being said, touch can have a very therapeutic effect if given in the right way. I did not find fault at all in that.
Oh, thank God.
And I
I
know that there are therapists who hug their clients at the end of a long session of therapy and saying goodbye. And whereas you may have only had a handshake before, a good hug and a pat on the back, get on out there, can be therapeutic. It can be a good final capstone to work well done. Right. So while it's not universally accepted in all schools of thought, and you have to be very judicious with touch as somebody in the therapeutic profession, I didn't find fault with that at all.
Okay, so hugs, gray area, no tongue, right?
I'll let you answer that yourself. I empower you to answer that yourself.
All right, so no trying to French kiss your therapist on the last day.
No, Jesus Christ, Jeff Jones.
So no choking, hugs are a gray area. That's all I've taken from this conversation that we've had about therapy.
Let me ask you a question, though.
Yeah.
There's so many great parts about Good Will Hunting, but there's this bar scene.
Yeah, sure.
That is iconic.
Yeah.
Right? And it really kind of shows who he's got. And for those who haven't seen it, let me set the stage. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and their townie buddies are facing off against some Harvard lads who are, more upper crust, and they're vying for the attention of Minnie Driver. And so they have this all scene and everything like that. Matt Damon at the end gets her number, and he asks the Harvard kids, "Do you like apples?" Do you like apples? I'm like, what? And he's like, how do you like these apples? Or how about them?
Well, I got a
apples?" Or
number.
something.
How you like them apples?
How do you like
Bam.
them apples? Yeah, great. Bam.
Yeah.
Iconic line. Repeated over and over and over again. Jeff, as a filmmaker and a screenwriter, do people know when they're going to write an iconic line like that?
What's funny is the answer is both yes and no, because they don't actually know. But every screenwriter, when they're writing, thinks, "Oh yeah, this is going to be iconic." But we're like 99% wrong. So we can't really claim credit for like the one time we're like, "Yeah, I knew it all along." I write lines all the time where I'm like, "Oh, I just crushed it. Oh my God, this is the most brilliant thing any writer's ever written. People are going to be quoting this for years." I do that with our podcast, Josh. I'll post one where I'm like, "Oh, this is going to be the one that gets 1 million views," and then it gets like 150, and I'm like, "All right, well, it's better than average." So we certainly believe that we're going to write these iconic moments, but the short answer is no. And what's really interesting about it, Josh, is the moments that are iconic are earned because of the rest of the movie, not the line itself. And that's always what ends up really happening. And so there's some really dumb lines if you think about them like just individually, where it's like, that's not a great line, or it's just kind of an average line. But the context of what led up to it made it so powerful. And we talked about this with our Star Wars episode, where like Anakin declares his love and Natalie declares her love. And like, it's a terrible, terrible moment, because every moment leading up to that has just been dumb. They have not been well written. They haven't been well directed. So like, they didn't earn that moment. I wish I could think of one right now. But like, there's a lot of lines where it's kind of cool, but it's only really made cool by the context of the moment.
I'm thinking of "Play It Again" from Casablanca. That's not a great line.
It's not a great line. Yeah, but
it's iconic because.
But it's iconic because of the context. Exactly. Yeah. And so this is a really important part of writing that is a little bit. There's schools of thought on it. There are joke writers, and then there are character writers. I think jokes are better when they come from character and not a joke. So when things are too jokey, they don't work for me as much as a joke coming from just who the person is naturally. And if you just write a character that is really true to themselves, but is a little like sort of awkward in whatever their quirky way is, that's where you have incredible comedy. Most of Ross's lines from Friends were funny because we knew who Ross was. We had the context of who he was as a person, not just what he was saying. It's a great line when they're like, well, who was it that got married and divorced? Well, it was obviously Ross. That's something that he would do. And then he thinks about it. He's like, that is something I would do. That's so funny, because we've seen him do it multiple times, and he's got a moment of self-awareness. The short and long answer is no. We don't know we're writing iconic lines. We hope that they will be, and we'll certainly be like, oh, yeah, I knew it when I wrote it that I crushed it. But we thought that 90 other times that we're wrong. But no, it's always the context that makes it iconic and not the line itself. That was a great question. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think we covered all I wanted to cover today in terms of, kind of the big three of Good Will Hunting. The friends, Will himself, and therapy. We're going to talk a lot more about Good Will Hunting and some stuff from the media on Thursday. We're going to talk about Robin Williams, his suicide, and the things that sort of led to that. We're talking about how Good Will Hunting didn't necessarily age well. There's some moments in there that didn't age well. So there's more to come for Good Will Hunting, but we're also going to talk about some stuff. There's been a lot of stuff in the media. Obviously, I participated in the protest this last weekend. We're going to talk about that a little bit. So more to come on Thursday. Okay, thanks for watching as always, or listening to Cinemental and our coverage of Good Will Hunting. If you like this episode, please subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. You can also watch clips of Cinemental on YouTube, where we'd love to hear what you would like us to cover next. Follow Dr. Josh Jones, America's psychiatrist, on Blue Sky. This has been a Large and in Charge production. For Josh Jones, I am Jeff Jones, and we will see you on Thursday.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.